Alright, so it's been way too long since the last part. But, anyways, our model is definitely coming along. We have most of the major portions done and all set for the most part. There are a couple areas where I'd like to touch up, like the front grille and headlights, sharpen up some pieces on the engine hood, and the taillights are a little messy, not really where I want them to be. But like I said, for the most part, looking pretty darn good. But there are many small parts throughout the entire car that we could model, and we're going to, just to demonstrate some other tools. We have gone over most of the main tools and concepts for 3D modeling, so if you wanted to, you probably already could model this antenna or this spoiler or the muffler or whatever. But I want to show you some cool extra tools, mostly modifiers, which are a powerful tool, but they can be kind of complicated to use sometimes. I'm just going to go over a couple different ways that you can. There's no right or wrong way, but yeah. So for the exhaust, I figured we'd start with the exhaust. So I actually have a reference picture of what sort of this looks like. I mean, it is underneath the car, so it doesn't have to be super duper detailed or whatever, but I wanted to show you a cool trick. So I'm going to center our 3D cursor at Shift C and Shift A while in object mode to add in, before we were adding in meshes, I wanted to add in a Bezier curve. And this adds in a curve. And we're able to, if we tab into edit mode, you're able to move everything around. It acts a little bit differently from your normal geometry. But I'm going to select everything, just scale Y 0 to straighten it out, rotate it, say 90 degrees, whatever. And then I want to sort of position this where our pipe is, where the exhaust system pipe thing would go. And right now it is just a curve. There's no geometry on it, so if we were to render this, this would not show up. But if we go onto our curve data panel thing, there's a bunch of settings for this curve, and if we change a couple of them, mainly change the fill type from half to full, and we want to change our bevel depth to around the radius of, or the diameter of that exhaust. And you can just do that, put that up, something like that maybe. I'm trying to follow that outline of that circle, and right now it's just sort of a square, but if we boost up our resolution, it adds some bevels to it to make it more circular. And yeah, this is a really easy way to create sort of rounded tubes and pipes and stuff. I'm actually just going to scale this entire thing down a little bit. Maybe scale on down, scale that one down, and just sort of position this so I'm able to see what's going on a little bit more. Something like that. Maybe that's even a little big, but you know, it's probably fine. Probably something like that. I might even make it a tad bit smaller. Something like that, perhaps. And then according to our reference picture, I'm just going to sort of drag this out to the shape of the exhaust. So it sort of goes to the back of the rear wheel, curves in something like that, maybe. Maybe a bit more than that, actually. So this middle portion of the curve, I should probably explain how this works. It is a bit different. So there's 3 points to each handle. I think that's what this is technically called. The middle point moves the entire piece, and these edges sort of move it or rotate it around so that you can change that. Just going to move it so that it looks a little bit like this. Just so it kind of curves, maybe like that. That's probably fine. Like I said, it's underneath the car. You're not really able to see it very often. Then I'm just going to add in our mirror modifier, duplicate it on the other side. These could probably come in a bit closer. Maybe like that. Doesn't have to be exact. I'm just going to extrude this all the way to the front of the car, I guess. Looks, I don't really know. And of course this doesn't take into consideration any, oh, actually in the front it sort of goes like this. Sort of goes back out. You don't really have to do this. This is just a little excess stuff, maybe something like that. Alright, so now let's model the tip of the exhaust, the part that we see mostly. And I'm just going to model this regular old geometry in this object. I'm actually going to hide that and everything except maybe just these pieces here. Oh. Alright, now we're just gonna do that, add in a cube, scale up. I'm just gonna do this really quick. I'm probably not gonna explain everything, but I'm just gonna model out this shape. It's a pretty simple shape, so just following the same concepts as before. Add some loop cuts to sharpen everything up, probably scale it out, maybe like that a little bit. Oh, entire thing probably should go where the actual exhaust goes. And go ahead and add a loop like that. Yeah, sharpen it up. I'm going to take all of these faces on the front of it, or the back, but the tip, I'm going to click I. I forget if we talked about this already, but it basically extrudes and scales in to create an inset. I'm going to extrude this back a little bit. Once more. Something like that. It's probably pretty close. And then to create a hole in our mesh, I'm going to show you a cool trick. I'm actually going to turn off our subsurface modifier and add a loop cut through here to sharpen that up. So I want to cut a circular hole down the middle of this. And I'm going to add in a little bit of geometry, just a loop cut down there. Bevel it to create the edges of the circle, and then create a loop cut in the center. And I'm going to create a circle out of these 4 faces. And these ones in the back as well. Now, this is an add-on. It's built into Blender, but you just have to enable it. So if you go to File, User Preferences, you can go to your Add-ons tab. And this is called, it's called Loop Tools. If you just search loop in the search bar, this will come up. Make sure it's checked off, and then just click Save User Settings. And when enabled, you can click W to open up your Specials menu. This has a lot of like miscellaneous tools in it. and this is where you'll find the loop tools. And we're just going to click circle, and that makes these objects circle. And then I want to scale these in, but I want them to scale individually, not towards each other. So I'm going to change our pivot point, which is down here, and I'm just going to change it to individual origins, which basically just if you have two types or two meshes selected like we do here, it will scale them individually. And then I'm just going to delete faces, and I'm going to select those two circles, and another loop tool is to bridge, and that sort of fills in geometry between them. And I'm just going to sharpen that up. That back's going to look kind of weird. But yeah, then we have that. Add some loops in here to sharpen it up. I think that looks alright. And then I'm going to unhide our exhaust and just sort of move this, probably a little big, but I'm going to go to here, change our depth to something to fit in here. Just position it to line up with that. And you might even scale this circle down. Doesn't have to be perfect, that probably works just fine. Yep, looks alright to me. I'll just give it a quick render. Yeah, I think that looks alright. Like I said, underneath isn't really going to be visible all that much. Actually, I will model one more thing real fast, just a muffler. You can add in a cylinder with, no, I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to duplicate one of these circles, Shift D to duplicate, go to rear view, sort of elongate this out a bit, something like that perhaps. Oh, we're going to put this back to median point, which is the default scale pivot point. Something like that. This is just real fast. Bring it out to muffler length. Then I'm going to inset these 2 points just to sharpen it up a little bit more. Smooth shade. That's a muffler. And then I'm just going to position it. It looks like it sort of goes here. Oh, a little too small. It looks like it sort of points up like that. Yeah, it's good for exhaust. I'm happy with it. Excuse me. So now I want to show you another, well, technically that wasn't a modifier, but I want to show you a modifier to model the spoiler and antenna up here. So I'm going to create a new object actually. Now I'm just going to duplicate it from here. I'm going to select this face up here, D, and then I'm going to click P to separate selection. And now I'm just going to model the general antenna shape. we didn't have clipping enabled, so I want this to be enabled. Bring that in, delete those middle faces so it doesn't do that. This doesn't have to be anything really special, it's such a minor part, just doing it really quickly. Basic, but it conveys the point. So if we give this a render right now, you see that it isn't quite sitting on the roof of the car. And we kind of do want it to sit on the roof of the car. So what we can do is we can go ahead and add in one more modifier, and that is called the shrinkwrap modifier. It's under here, under deform. And if we choose a target, right now it's red, so it's not affecting anything. But if we choose the target as, I'm just going to use this eyedropper tool to select our car, it sort of takes all the geometry and smushes it onto a surface. But we only really want it to affect these vertices here on the bottom. So I'm going to select those vertices, and I'm going to go to this tab up here called the object data. And this contains a useful tool called vertex groups. If you go ahead and click plus, you'll add a group. I'll name this bottom. And I want to assign these vertices, so I'm going to select all those bottom vertices. Alright, and just click assign. And now if we go back to our tab and our shrinkwrap modifier, we can select a vertex group that the shrinkwrap modifier affects. And we're just going to select bottom. So now that only affects the vertices on the, you guessed it, bottom. And actually, I want to test to see if this does anything here. Alright, never mind. I don't want that. Now when we do that, it is attached to the roof. And we might even apply this and then just sharpen it up. Sometimes when applying modifiers that are, generally when applying modifiers, you start at the top and move your way to the bottom, but this seemed to work fine just applying that last. That looks good. It's a little round, but you know, it's fine. Might move things in a bit. I know I said it's not a very important part, but I don't want it to be super round. Alright, so that's how we can attach objects to surfaces. And I'm going to sort of follow the same concept for this spoiler here. I'm going to start with a mesh, some of the geometry here. Maybe, how far does it go out? Yeah, probably there. So I'm going to select some faces to begin with. Oh, maybe even one more row. Oh. Maybe those vertices there. Shift D to duplicate. Then I'm going to separate using P. Separate. Now we have this. I'm actually just gonna Control I hide this so I can just work on this alone real fast. And we don't really need these panel lines here, so I'm gonna delete some of this geometry to simplify things. Mostly just these edges down here. merge or bridge those. Then I'll bridge these. And we do want it to maintain the same curvature, so it doesn't misalign with that. So I'm going to try my best to simplify it, but still maintaining these sharp edges across here and here. And now I'm just going to edge slide some of this geometry up here. Just try to make it line up to where this spoiler is. I'm going to try to keep these all of this geometry that makes up the bottom there, mostly in place, maybe just a little edge slide back or something. And then I'm just going to select everything and extrude up. Then I'm going to add an edge loop down here to sharpen it up. Select all these faces on the here bottom. Using our C select just to make this quick. I'm going to go ahead and assign the vertex group, create assign, this will be the bottom. And then I'm going to go ahead and sort of form the rest of this spoiler. I think I'm just going to edge slide most of these back. Whoopsies. Clipping wasn't enabled once more. So when clipping is enabled, to fix it, just re-enable it, and then select the vertices along the y-axis, drag them in, and then X delete those faces. I'm just going to sort of reposition this. To fit the outline of the spoiler. This may sort of mess up the shrinkwrap modifier when we add it, just a little bit, but we can move it back, some things back into place. Alright, I think that's pretty good. I'm just going to add an edge loop across this outer part to sharpen that up. And from our back, this needs to come down. Sorry about that. And I've had this picture of, I just took a look at this picture, and it's not really the shape that I would like it to be. I just think the geometry here of just extruding that up doesn't work as well as I would like it to. So basically just going to start over by deleting actually that entire object. I'm just going to redo it completely. Don't be afraid to start over sometimes, because honestly sometimes it's more work to fix something than it is to just redo it. So I'm just going to repeat that process. Duplicate that, separate it, and get these connected. Need this geometry up. just sort of repeating the same process. Alright, so I'm gonna do this more slowly, but to get more of the shape that I want. Alright, so first things first, I'm going to sort of reposition this just this way. I might even delete that for now. Actually, not that one. I want to delete these two. Just sort of redefine that curve to the way the spoiler is, which is like nothing like I was going for. Alright, just gonna change this a bit. Alright, that's probably closer to what I want. And then I'm just going to do this. Oh, I should probably do this from the side. Go ahead and bring this up. Alright. So, I'm going to do this slowly. I'm going to extrude the rear port up. Something like that. And just get this all the way I want it. The normals are backwards. I'm just going to click Control N to fix that. Go into our rear view, just make sure these line up to where I want them to. Bring that one down. Alright, that is pretty darn close, I think. Gonna go ahead and extrude these up to fill in this face. Wait, that's actually not what I want to do. I'm gonna select this top portion, extrude that out like this. I'm gonna turn the subsurf off for now, so it makes it a little easier to work with. Like that, perhaps. It's taking a little bit longer than I would like it to, but you know, it's fine. I'm gonna extrude this up a little bit. Then I'll go ahead and bridge these two. And then I am going to just fill in these faces down here. Add some loops to meet up with it. Fill that in. 1, 2. Oopsies, one more down here. Like that. Oh. Like that. Now I think this should be, yeah, that's a bit closer to what I was going for. I'm just going to add some edge loops to sharpen everything up. Alright, yeah, that's probably a lot closer to what I want. Even if it is pretty similar, I think it looks better. I am more satisfied with this. Yeah, that looks a bit better, I think. Alright, so now I'm just going to select all these vertices on the bottom, or the faces, I guess. Something like that. Oh. Select all these. And then go to our vertex groups, add, assign, make sure this is set to bottom. I'm going to Alt-H that. See, we got some space there. Let's go ahead and add in our shrinkwrap. Target the car, change our vertex group to bottom, and that should be good. Yeah, it looks pretty darn happy with it. It does sort of come off the car a little bit, so maybe we can even give it a little bit of an offset. Maybe not actually. If we, no, we'll just keep it like that for now. All right, so that's pretty much got guests over, not my guests, but there's company, and I probably gotta get going. So hopefully you learned something cool, and we'll apply these in your own model. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next part. Thanks.